What if the history you were taught was only half the truth? Hidden beneath layers of silence, buried in sealed caves and classified files, are stories too disturbing, too dangerous, to make it into the textbooks. Tonight, we open that box, the one they warned us not to touch. And once you hear what's inside, you won't forget it, and you won't sleep the same again. The attic was cold. Dust particles floated like snowflakes in the dim light filtering through a cracked window. It was March 2023 when historian Rebecca Klein, while cataloging abandoned buildings in Krakow, stumbled upon a forgotten wooden trunk. Inside, among moth-eaten scarves and brittle photographs, lay a yellowed envelope addressed in delicate cursive, to Cousin Ruth, Brooklyn, New York. The envelope had never been mailed. The letter, though fragile, was readable. Its contents unfolded a forgotten life. Sophia Lewin, 17, of Lwów. The documentary within this story reconstructs her life from the letter, diaries, and dramatized reenactments based on testimony from Holocaust survivors who knew the underground world of Lwów. Sophia began her letter in September 1943. Her words were mature beyond her years, brimming with fear and resilience. "If you are reading this," she wrote, "I have likely vanished into smoke or shadow. But I want you to know I was once real." Before the Nazi occupation, Lwów was a symphony of cultures: Jewish, Polish, Ukrainian, Armenian. Sophia was the daughter of a violin maker. Her father, Abram Lewin, crafted instruments for both Jewish klezmer bands and Ukrainian folk musicians. Their home above the shop was filled with music, laughter, and the faint scent of varnish. But the Germans arrived in 1941, and everything changed. The letter describes how her family was forced into the Lwów ghetto. Sophia, once a girl of song, now witnessed the silence of the condemned. "Every violin in father's shop was confiscated," she wrote, "except the one I hid in the chimney." In the winter of 1942, her parents were taken during a sweep. Sophia narrowly escaped by hiding behind a loose wall panel in the tenement's basement. She waited 3 days in pitch black, surviving on dry crusts of bread and stale water from a leaking pipe. After her parents' disappearance, she fled the ghetto with the help of a Polish resistance courier known only as Janek. He smuggled her through the sewer system beneath the city, an underground labyrinth that became the sanctuary for a group of Jewish fugitives hiding beneath Lwow's cobblestones. This is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Sophia wrote of a secret society in the sewers, a hidden world of resistance fighters, lost children, and ex-musicians. They called themselves the Echoes. To preserve their sanity in the stench-filled tunnels, they played music. Violin strings were fashioned from threads of old wire, and water drums were crafted from broken cans and cooking pots. Sophia became the lead violinist in the underground orchestra. She played by candlelight for children hiding in silence. "We performed Beethoven by memory," she wrote, "and every note we played was defiance." Their makeshift concerts would sometimes rise faintly into the streets through the sewer grates. Sophia mused that perhaps those echoes gave hope to someone above. One of the most chilling sections of the letter details the Gestapo's descent into the sewers in late 1943. A snitch had betrayed them. German soldiers with flamethrowers descended into the tunnels. "We heard the screams. We felt the heat. But music saved us," Sophia wrote. The orchestra played a dissonant symphony to mask the cries of children hiding deeper in the maze. The noise disoriented the soldiers, allowing many to escape through auxiliary passages. Janek, the courier, never returned from that raid. Sophia mourned him like a brother. "He gave me a name when I had none, a song when I had only silence," she wrote. The letter ends abruptly, with no signature. Its last words read, "If I vanish, promise me, Cousin Ruth, that you'll find my song. It must not die beneath the streets." The documentary theorizes that Sophia may have been among those who later emerged from the sewers after the Soviets retook Lwów in 1944. However, no official records list her name among the survivors. Some say she might have fled east, changing her identity. A few even claim she resurfaced in post-war Paris under the name Eva Leclerc, a violinist of unknown origin who played only in dimly lit clubs. Musicologists have recently analyzed scratchy wartime recordings from the 1950s. One anonymous recording from a Polish refugee camp in Austria contains a violin performance of Beethoven's Romance in F, played with a noticeable tremor, as if echoing off stone walls. Could it have been Zofia? Rebecca Klein, the historian, submitted the letter and accompanying items to Yad Vashem. It is now part of an exhibit titled Melodies of Resistance, Music in the Holocaust. The exhibit features a reconstruction of The Echoes sewer stage, and visitors can listen to dramatized performances based on Zofia's accounts. Some nights, tourists in Lviv report hearing faint violin music rising from the street grates. Locals dismiss it as wind or imagination. But for those who know Zofia's story, they stop and listen, just in case. October 16, 1943. The German-type WWII U-boat U-274 departs from Bergen, Norway, under the command of Captain Lieutenant Dieter Falk. Their mission: intercept Allied convoys in the North Atlantic as part of the renewed Wolfpack campaign. U-274, with its 48-man crew, vanishes just 5 days later without a trace. The last known transmission is what makes U-274 legendary among naval historians, conspiracy theorists, and maritime scholars alike. At 3:11 hours on October 21, Falk's voice crackled over the radio waves to Kriegsmarine Command. Dense fog. Instruments failing. Strange echoes in the water. The fog has voices. We are not alone. Then, nothing. The U-boat was declared lost. Allied reports from that region never recorded depth charge activity, sightings, or aircraft engagements. U-274 seemed to disappear in clear waters near the Norwegian Sea. Years passed. Wreck hunters scoured the ocean floor in vain. No remains were ever found. The myth of U-274 began to grow. In 1951, a Norwegian fisherman named Torvald Mikkelsen claimed to have seen a rusted conning tower rise briefly from the fog off the coast of Hammerfest. It just sat there, he said, like it was trying to remember how to surface. No wreck was ever found in the area. The incident was dismissed, until others began speaking of similar sightings. The documentary frames the mystery through several perspectives. We hear from retired German naval officers, U-boat veterans who remembered Falk as brilliant but deeply superstitious. He believed in omens, said one crewmate, aged 96. He said the ocean whispers to those who drown in it. Falk's wartime journal, discovered in 1998 at an estate sale in Munich, deepens the mystery. The last entries, if authentic, describe weeks of paranoia before departure. He wrote of dreams filled with drowned men whispering in Icelandic, a language he did not know. He claimed his compass spun without cause during pre-mission drills. The sea no longer wants us, he wrote. Experts contest the journal's legitimacy, but handwriting analysis supports its authenticity. The most compelling theory centers on a classified German project known as Nebelgeist, translated as fog ghost. According to declassified British intelligence files, Nebelgeist was a series of experimental acoustic warfare devices designed to create phantom sonar echoes and false signals. The devices, fitted to a few select U-boats, may have included early sonar jamming prototypes. Dr. Einar Söderlund, a Swedish marine technology expert, believes U-274 was fitted with such a device, which malfunctioned and caused sensory hallucinations among the crew. Long-term exposure to certain ultrasonic frequencies, especially in the confines of a submarine, can induce auditory hallucinations, disorientation, even madness, he explains. Could Falk's crew have succumbed to psychological breakdowns, triggered by their own weapons? In a haunting twist, in 2012, a deep-sea sonar team from Norway's Statoil detected a mass anomaly 3,200 meters below sea level off the Jan Mayen Ridge. The anomaly matched the length and dimensions of a Type WWII U-boat. ROV exploration was blocked, however, due to extreme pressure and sudden equipment failure. The recovered sonar image shows the U-boat lying at a strange angle, as if embedded partially in a crevice. The conning tower appears intact, but odd markings are visible on the outer hull. The video feed, though brief, showed what appear to be claw-like scrapes running the length of the ship's flank. Engineers dismissed it as rock damage from a slide. But folklore spun another tale. Enter the local legend of the Hvolver, sea wolves, Nordic spirits said to haunt waters where violent death occurred. Old fishermen near the Barents Sea speak of strange lights under the water and voices calling out in guttural German. Every few years, a distress signal is picked up on old Navy frequencies, unregistered, broken transmissions consisting of heavy breathing, metallic groaning, and the repeating Morse code for WOLF. Skeptics attribute these to radio interference or pranksters. But some remain unconvinced. In 2021, a salvage diver named Lena Thorson brought forward what she claimed was a rusted piece of pressure-hardened hull plating found 180 miles north of Iceland. Embedded within the metal was an unidentifiable crystalline growth. Chemical analysis revealed it was unlike any known substance formed in oceanic environments. Her video footage showed the plate etched with a crude carving, a wolf's head, fangs bared, eyes empty. The German Navy, when contacted for comment, acknowledged U-274's loss but dismissed all speculation as fantasy fueled by wartime trauma. Nevertheless, the story has inspired books, mockumentaries, and even a banned shortwave radio reenactment in Berlin that ended with listeners reporting nausea and insomnia. The last scene of the documentary shows the cold waves off Norway, endlessly shifting. The narrator says, "In war, men vanish. But sometimes, their echoes linger, trapped between sonar pings and dreams. And if you listen closely, through the fog, the wolves still howl." Buried in a dusty vault beneath Whitehall, long-forgotten files marked "Eyes Only, Special Operations Executive" were quietly declassified in 2019. Among them, a cryptic mission dossier surfaced, Operation Snow Lion. The documents detailed a British-led guerrilla operation launched in the remote Himalayas during World War II, an audacious attempt to ignite resistance behind Japanese lines by arming Tibetan monks, Chinese exiles, and Himalayan tribespeople. The story centers around Major Elspeth Carr, a linguist, anthropologist, and one of the SOE's few female field commanders. Born in Calcutta and raised between colonial clubs and temple ruins, Elspeth was fluent in Mandarin, Tibetan, and several regional dialects. Described by her superiors as incorrigibly unorthodox, she was recruited for her unique skills and her willingness to disappear into worlds others feared. Her mission, initiated in January 1944, was to destabilize Japanese logistical operations across western China by creating a network of sabotage cells stretching from the Kunlun Mountains to the Yunnan border. The Allies were desperate. The Burma Road had been cut, and Chiang Kai-shek's forces were floundering. The Americans were pressuring the British to do more. Snow Lion was the answer. Elspeth parachuted into Amdo, eastern Tibet, alongside 2 Chinese nationalist agents and a Gurkha radio operator. According to her personal field diary, which surfaced in a private estate sale in Bath, their drop zone was a frozen lake. "We fell like knives into a still world," she wrote. "The cold took us before gravity did." Over the next 3 months, she embedded herself in the Taksang Hermitage, posing as a wandering scholar from Bengal. There she met Lama Norjeen, a monk of great influence known for his visions and his resistance to foreign occupation, both Japanese and Chinese. The Lama believed in a prophecy, that warriors of the high mountains would rise once again against tyrants from the east. Elspeth's cover slowly unraveled as she taught resistance tactics to young monks under the guise of teaching archery and meditation drills. She trained them in demolitions using tea canisters filled with gunpowder and instructed them how to derail supply trains using prayer wheels modified to conceal timers. In her field notes, she recorded, "We blend sabotage with silence. They pray. Then they strike. I have never known such fire inside so much calm." The Japanese, suspecting a growing insurgency, sent collaborators from the puppet state of Manchukuo into the region. A special unit led by Captain Kenji Yamato, known for his brutal suppression of guerrilla cells in northern China, entered the Kham region under the pretext of hunting bandits. Villages were razed. Livestock stolen. Children questioned. On April 18, 1944, the resistance struck back. In what came to be known, among the local oral histories, as the Night of Thunderdrums, over 24 Japanese supply caravans were attacked simultaneously. Roads vanished in landslides. Bridges exploded into splinters. Dozens of occupying officers were ambushed by what survivors described as monks riding through mist with torches of fire. WWII communications intercepted that same week confirmed the operation's success. One message read, "Result: local rebellion has cut Japanese supply efficiency by estimated 40%. Enemy now believes in ghosts." But the cost was heavy. A Japanese air raid on Taksang killed 14 monks, including Lama Norjin. Elspeth's diary speaks of his final words, "The lion does not fear death in snow. Only silence." The monastery was turned to rubble. Elspeth escaped with a bullet in her shoulder and a map carved into a prayer tablet, marking caches of weapons and radio sets buried across the mountains. What followed is less clear. Official SOE records state that Major Carr was extracted via mule convoy into India in September 1944. But Tibetan oral history tells a different tale, that she remained behind, disguised as a nun, guiding fighters until the war's end. Some claim she vanished into the mountains. Others say she died leading an ambush against retreating Japanese forces near Litong. Her identity remains mysterious. In the 1970s, a French mountaineer named Jules Barrou published photos of a shrine deep in the Himalayas. Among the relics, a rusted British service pistol and a torn khaki scarf bearing the initials EC. Today, the story of Operation Snow Lion remains absent from most history books. But in small monasteries dotting the Tibetan plateau, faded murals tell of a pale-eyed lioness who came from the clouds, bearing fire and fury. A lioness who whispered war into the ears of those who had only known prayers. In 2020, a documentary crew retraced her route using her surviving maps. They discovered an intact weapons cache, 3 British Enfield rifles wrapped in silk, hidden behind a false wall in a remote village shrine. Nearby, carved into stone, was a phrase in Sanskrit and English. "Where silence ends, the lion roars." As the Allies bombarded Lübeck on Palm Sunday, 1942, the ancient Hanseatic city erupted in fire and rubble. Amid the inferno, a small watchmaker's shop on Glockengierstrasse stood improbably untouched. Inside, Matthias Engel, a 67-year-old craftsman known for fixing cathedral clocks and heirloom pocket watches, sat alone at his workbench, polishing the face of a timepiece as the world crumbled around him. This is where his story begins, and where legend meets shadow. For decades, Engel was known only in whispers, the man who defused a Nazi time bomb with nothing but brass gears and a tuning fork. His story never made the official war records. Only in 1984, when his grandson donated an old reel-to-reel recorder to the Lübeck City Archives, did his tale come to light. The recording was made in 1963, just days before Engel's death. On it, his trembling voice recounts a night that might have saved half the city. The story starts with Project Nachtglas, a secret Nazi program that embedded timed demolition charges in German cities to deny infrastructure to advancing Allies should they land in Northern Europe. In March 1942, an experimental device, a prototype with a new form of delay mechanism, was planted in Lübeck's main electric grid station. Something went wrong. The bomb armed itself prematurely during the bombing raid. It was meant to destroy the station post-occupation, not during. The station survived the first wave of bombs but began emitting a strange hum, one that local residents, cowering in bunkers, described as a ticking like God's clock counting down. The bomb was buried beneath meters of concrete and copper wiring. No one dared approach. Until Engel did. Though no soldier, Engel had been a master horologist for over 50 years. He had once repaired a 300-year-old astronomical clock in Prague using tools he crafted himself. When rumors of the ticking reached him, he grabbed his leather case and walked, slowly, through the still-burning streets to the substation. Witnesses say he arrived just as the SS sealed off the site. But Engel showed them his papers that, for reasons still unknown, bore the red seal of the Reich's Engineering Corps. It's unclear how he obtained them. Some believe he once worked briefly for the Nazis in the early years of the war, crafting precision timers for their V-weapons, before vanishing from the official rolls. Inside the substation, the heat was suffocating. Wires hung like vines. The ticking grew louder, vibrating through the walls. At the center, beneath a cracked iron hatch, lay the bomb, a smooth black cylinder fitted with a bizarre glass component shaped like a pendulum. Engel opened his case. His voice on the tape is calm. "I had 3 tools, a balanced spring remover, a broken tuning fork, and an antique regulator's gear clamp. Nothing more." The recording captures the faint tremble of his breath, but also the strange reverence with which he approached the device. "It was not a bomb," he says. "It was a clock that had been told to kill." For 6 hours, he worked in silence, unaware if the mechanism would detonate with a single jolt. At one point, he describes tapping the glass pendulum with the tuning fork to find its frequency. "It sang back to me," he says, "like it knew it had made a mistake." Eventually, he found the regulating gear, a fine brass wheel smaller than a pfennig coin, and froze it in place with a clamp. The ticking stopped. The bomb was neutralized. But this is only half the story. After the war, American intelligence officers interrogated Engel. The design of the bomb, they believed, was too advanced, even for German science in 1942. Some suspected Soviet sabotage. Others whispered that it had been part of an occult program. Engel gave no answers, only saying, "It was not meant for the Allies. It was meant for something that never arrived." Back in Lübeck, Engel returned to his quiet life. He resumed repairing clocks and refused all interviews. He never accepted a medal. But those who visited his shop noted something strange. He never again built a clock with a ticking sound. All his pieces ran silently. In 1963, days before his death, he recorded his story, believing no one would ever hear it. "I was once proud of my machines," he says near the end. "But then I met one that wanted to end time instead of measure it." When the story became public in the 80s, it sparked a wave of speculation. Was Engel a hero or a former Nazi trying to make amends? The bomb's remains were never found, removed, perhaps, by the British during Reconstruction. But the archives contain one object, a gear clamp made of a metal alloy that modern testing cannot identify. It is etched with a single word, NEIN. In 2015, a documentary crew filmed a special episode of Ghosts of the Reich inside the restored substation. As they activated their EMF scanners near the location where the bomb once lay, the audio recorded faint, rhythmic clicking, like a clock just starting to tick again. To this day, on the anniversary of the Lübeck bombing, the city's cathedral bells are wound precisely at 9:46 p.m., the moment Engel began disarming the device. They ring for 7 minutes and 7 seconds, the length of his silence with the bomb. The jungle of Peleliu, hot and thick with the breath of the Pacific, has never been quiet. Even decades after the 1944 battle that turned its coral ridges into a blood-soaked hell, the island hums with secrets. Tourists avoid certain caves. Locals speak of strange lights flickering near old pillboxes. And in 2017, when a team of U.S. Navy divers conducting unexploded ordnance sweeps near the Orange Beach landing zone unearthed a sealed cave entrance, the silence ended. Inside the collapsed chamber, long hidden by landslides and coral growth, they found remains, bones, rusted canteens, fragments of uniforms both American and Japanese. Among the debris lay a journal, remarkably preserved, its leather cover scorched and chewed by time. On the first page, written in faded pencil, Corporal Hank R. Mayfield, 1st Marines, 7th Regiment. Hank Mayfield had been listed as MIA since September 1944. The journal revealed what the official records never did, that he, along with a handful of Marines and a few Japanese holdouts, were trapped together for nearly 28 days beneath Peleliu in an uneasy, unspoken truce. His account begins after the chaos of the initial landing. "Our platoon got cut off in the ridge tunnels when a mortar brought down the ceiling. We had no radio, little water, 2 wounded. And then, we heard them breathing in the dark. At first, the Japanese soldiers, 7 men, desperate and skeletal, threatened them. But something strange happened. Both sides, too weak and too lost to fight, began to share space. They posted watches, ate stolen rations in silence, and never spoke above whispers. We weren't men anymore, Mayfield wrote. We were ghosts who hadn't figured out how to die. Over time, names began to emerge in the journal. Private Yamada, who shared half a morphine ampoule with an American medic. Lieutenant Ota, who hummed a lullaby every night before sleep. One Marine, Corporal Vasquez, traded his last cigarette for a strip of dried squid. In that buried tomb, war seemed far away. Hunger was louder than politics. Exhaustion buried hate. Mayfield wrote, "There's a sound that happens when no one moves. Just breathing. Just the cave itself." It sounded like the ocean under stone. A turning point came when one of the Japanese, a boy no older than 17, died from infection. Both sides mourned him. They buried him near the cave entrance, covering the body in palm leaves and sand. It was the only time they left the chamber together. But the truce wasn't perfect. On day 18, a Marine attempted to steal a Japanese rifle. A struggle broke out, a shot fired. No one was hit, but the fragile piece cracked. From then on, they sat with weapons in hand, sleeping in shifts, the air thick with suspicion. Still, they didn't kill each other. By day 26, the cave began to flood. Rain from the surface leaked through cracks in the limestone. The journal records that the group moved to higher ground, deeper into darkness. There, they found an older tunnel, pre-war, perhaps dug by local laborers or an old coral mine. It became their new refuge. The final entries are barely legible. Day 27, Vasquez is gone. No blood. Just gone. Japanese think it's a trick. Maybe it is. Maybe he crawled out. Maybe the island ate him. Day 28, I saw them all last night. Even the dead one. He was smiling. Said we were lucky. Said we had more time. Then, the last line, we buried something today. A flag. Not American. Not Japanese. Both. Together. Stitched it from uniforms. One side red. One side white and blue. Buried it with our names. The cave contained no such flag when discovered. Only the journal and a handful of personal items. Dog tags, a lighter engraved with, "To Hank, Love Martha," and a Japanese cigarette case with the kanji for, peace. Forensics confirmed the remains belonged to at least 9 individuals, both American and Japanese. DNA matched one to Corporal Mayfield. None of the families had known what had become of their sons. The story exploded across media outlets. Veterans wept. Japanese and American officials held a joint ceremony on Peleliu, where a new plaque was placed near the cave entrance. It reads, asterisk, to those who found humanity in hell. Asterisk. But the story doesn't end there. In 2023, a group of anthropology students from Tokyo University revisited the site. While exploring an adjacent tunnel, they discovered a small alcove sealed by coral stones. Inside, wrapped in a U.S. Marine poncho, they found the flag. It was just as described, half American, half Japanese, stitched together in a clumsy but unmistakable union. Threaded into the hem were names. Some readable, others worn away. Hank's was there. So was Yamada's. So was Ota's. The flag now hangs in the Smithsonian's World War II exhibit, beside the journal, under dim light. Visitors often stand in silence before it. Some cry. Others simply stare. Museum staff have reported something peculiar. During certain late hours, motion sensors near the exhibit trigger with no one around. Security footage shows nothing, just the flag, swaying ever so slightly, as if moved by a breath from underground. On Peleliu, the locals continue their stories. They say the cave is haunted, not with anger, but with sorrow. They say that sometimes, if you step inside and hold your breath, you can hear men breathing. Not one side. Not the other. Just voices of those who chose not to die as enemies. You've now seen what was never meant to be found, stories they buried, erased, or swore never happened. But some truths refuse to stay hidden. If these were forgotten, how many more are still out there, sealed in silence, waiting? The deeper you dig, the darker it gets. So ask yourself, how far down are you willing to go?